Frenchie here at Diamondback Armory, coming at you with a AR-10 disassembly video. This one is a Diamondback DB10. To start, you'll need several tools. You'll definitely need a hammer, a set of punches, a punch block, preferably some type of flathead screwdriver, an AR wrench, and this is another tool that will help significantly with removing the upper, and then a set of Torx wrenches. Step 1 of disassembly is to always check clear. Here you can see it is clear. Then you will knock out these 2 pins in the lower. Sometimes they are a bit stiff and you may need some sort of punch or otherwise to get out, which in my case I will. From there, the upper and lower split apart like this, and then you can pull the bolt right out. And now it is successfully field stripped. Alright, we will start with the lower today, and we will begin by disassembling the trigger group. And the trigger group is fairly simple. There are 2 pins and then a screw under the grip here that holds the fire selector in place. And so we'll start with the screw, which are typically 3/16, but not always. Right. And there is usually a spring and a detent in here as well to be aware of when you do go to remove it. You may need to hit it out, sometimes it'll fall out, but there is a second spring and detent in here that holds this pin in place, as well as another one in here that holds the other side in place, which we will get to later. And there's the detent. From here, we will take our punch block and our set of punches. And here, the pin falls right out. And we will knock out these 2 pins. I'm usually not too picky about the order I punch them out in. I believe it's more so preference than anything. That is pin 1. And keep in mind, these are under spring tension, as you can see. So I would always advise keeping your hands around it for when it does come popping out. And there's pin number 2. There we go. And that is all the spring tension coming out. And now you can remove all of the pieces. And there's your trigger assembly, fully disassembled. Next, we will go and remove the bolt catch. And this, a lot of them tend to have a roll pin, which in this case it does, right in this area, which is not always easy to get to. However, a vise will make your life a lot easier. So moving over to the vise, the roll pin is in here, and it can come out this way. As you can see, there's a little channel in this lower for it. And what you do is grab your punch, it may be a little bit tight since there is spring tension. Just keep going away at it. And now the roll pin is successfully out and caught in that channel, and you can just take it right out. And in there is another spring and detent. Yeah. Spring is still in there. There we go. And now there is the bolt catch fully disassembled. So the next step here will be getting the mag release out. And the way to do that is to push on it on the button from the other side until it sticks out almost entirely here. And then you can just twist it like so. Now this comes out. This comes out as well, and there is another nice thick spring that follows along. And that is your mag release. So moving on to the front pin here, there is a detent and spring in this little area, which is typically pretty stiff. There are a couple ways to do it. One is you can take a screwdriver and push in on that detent. It does damage your rifle a little bit more, but it will work all the same. Now, this has a lot of tension, so always make sure to have your hand covering it for when you inevitably get it out. All right. And as you can see, that detent immediately tried to fly wherever it wanted to, but we have it now, as well as the spring. And now you are almost done with your lower. So one thing to keep in mind when removing the buffer tube and stock is most castle nuts come staked, which is what you see right here, as opposed to this other side where it isn't. They basically move the metal from this ring onto the castle nut, that way it stays in place better. So it may take some force, but this is made to be, this piece is made to be staked and to break in the way that it needs to get it off. So moving to the last part of your AR lower is getting the buffer tube and stock removed. So we'll start with the castle nut. Usually you will have your detent and spring coming from here to there, pushing on it on that pin this way. In this case, it was under the grip pushing on it this way. All ARs are a little bit different. Most of them have a spring and detent pushing this way onto your little pin here that holds the upper in place. But in this case, it was under the grip pushing this way. So for most ARs, you will have to worry about a spring and detent. In this one specifically, you won't have to. All right, so now we will take our AR wrench and loosen it. Just like so. It may be more difficult for you than others. It all depends on the AR. So one thing to keep in mind too, what I recommend doing is taking the buffer and spring out first. And so to do that, we'll take our screwdriver once again, push back on the buffer and spring, and push down on this little detent here. That will allow for the buffer, and again, a lot of spring tension here, to allow for the buffer and spring to come out, like so. And now, once again, this detent here is being held in place by the buffer tube. And so what you'll do is remove this little piece here, push down on the detent, and simply twist. And from now you can slowly let go, and you can now remove your detent and spring, like so. And from here, you just continue twisting until the buffer tube comes out entirely. And now you have your buffer tube and stock completely removed. Okay. And now you have a fully disassembled AR-10 lower. And now we will be moving on to disassembling the upper assembly. Here you will need this tool here. It goes in the upper like so, and these lugs will interact with the barrel on the inside, locking it in place. And we will start by disassembling the forward assist here. All that's holding it in place is one roll pin, so you'll take your punch and hammer and simply knock it out. Keep in mind where the roll pin goes flying off to. That will be important later. Once again, this is under spring tension, so just keep a hand on it as you pull your punch out and let it fall out slowly. And there's your forward assist. ARs tend to be very different in how they keep the dust cover in place. In this case, I will have to remove the handguard in order to slide the pin that holds it in place. And we will do that by removing these 3 screws down here, which use friction and compression to hold it in place. In this case, it is a 9/64 bit. You just go in and crank these off. Some have 3 screws, some have 2 screws. It's all dependent on the manufacturer, exactly how they hold it in place. And from there, you should be able to slide it right off. So, next we will remove the gas tube and barrel nut. With the gas tube, there is a roll pin holding the tube itself in place, and then 2 screws underneath here holding the gas block in place. So we will start with the gas tube. Right. Always try to keep in mind where your roll pins go. And from there you can pull this out with some or little difficulty. In this case, more difficulty than normal. There we go. Now we will flip this over to get the gas block itself out. There we go. And these may be tight, so always keep that in mind. Alright. And from there, what we will do next is remove the muzzle device. We take our AR wrench once again and twist. Some manufacturers use rock set or some sort of thread locker to keep theirs on, so it may be harder or easier for you, all depending. So, with your crush washer and muzzle device off, you can now pull the gas block and tube right out. And now, the second to last step is removing your barrel nut. Normally, this AR wrench would work, however, this is made for a 5.56, while this is made for a 7.62. So the barrel nut is much bigger, and you'll have to either find one that's made for that caliber, or you go and find a regular wrench that will fit around it. There we go. Alright, in my case, I found an adjustable wrench that will do the trick. Sometimes they are cranked on really hard and will take more effort than normal. That is okay. Do your best. A breaker bar will usually be your best option. In this case, we did not have one big enough for the wrench we used. And now your barrel should come off just like that. So it seems that they may have put some sort of thread locker on there. You can see these little bits here and on the threads as well, which is fine. It's always a good practice. It's never a bad idea to have a thread locker. In this case, I assume thread lock and crank down super tight, but doesn't matter. We got it anyway. Your last step will be to remove, in this case, in this removal with this upper, is to remove the dust cover. In this case, the barrel nut was actually blocking the little pin here. But now what you can do is slide this as far as you can, and then you can grab it and just pull it right out. Keep in mind this spring is under tension, so just keep one finger on it as you pull out this pin and slowly let off. And now you have a fully disassembled 7.62 AR upper. Alright, so now the AR is fully disassembled down to its bare bones. Each AR is a little bit different. They all do things slightly differently. Having done this just now, probably what I would have done different is maybe heated up the barrel nut some. Or if it's rock set, put it in water or something to try and break down that thread locker. That would have made my life a lot easier. Otherwise, now you have it completely disassembled. In our case, we did this for the purpose of Cerakote, where we will make this a nice metallic 3-color camo, and that is what will be featured in the reassembly video.